With the up and coming Nas and DJ Premier collab project that's right around the corner, that's slated to be dropping by the end of this year, 2025, I figured it was only right to do a ranking and rank out all 19, yes, 19 Nas albums from his worst to his best. And I'm going to do it on one little review here right now. And of course, as always, like I did when I did my Eminem Ranking tier list, which if you haven't checked out my ranking of that, I'll leave a link down below. I'm going to be excluding just two albums. Yes, just only two projects from this ranking because obviously at the end of the day, this is Nas we're talking about and his discography is pretty big and expansive. And the only two albums I'm excluding from this ranking is the collab project with Distant Relatives from him and I think Bob Marley's son at the time in 2010, and of course the big Firm album, which was the debut and only album under that group that Nas was working with at the time. Just because, again, they're collab projects, it's not full on nuts and butts Nas project. And while I do understand that the Firm is considered by many to be one of the worst rap albums of all time for some who have talked about this, again, it is excluded because it's not an exclusive Nas project. And of course, as always, any compilation albums, etc., is excluded. So, with the plethora of all of the albums I have that's a Nas discography here, let's get into the top 19 ranked Nas projects in this video. So, once again, here we go. All 19 projects right here laid out. And of course, before I talk more in detail of these projects here, I'm simply going to breeze through the bottom nine as, again, it's going to take me further to explain every little detail of every Nas project right off the bat. So I would like to say more of my thoughts and comments on the top 10 when we get to it. So without further ado, let's start with the number 19th album from Nas. At number 19, this one should be honestly no surprise given like my thoughts and feelings and how everyone has felt about this project over the years, and it's Nostradamus. Again, nothing to be said about this project that has been said already. It is considered to be the worst Nas project of all time, one of the weakest projects out there for a reason, from him borrowing ideas left and right at the time, trying to go for trends, and it just failed really miserably in the process. And then, of course, moving on, we'll go on to our number 18 spot. For me, I'm going to go with Nausier from 2018. Again, out of all the seven album rollouts that was coming out during the Kanye West canon at the time, between this, Ye, and Push T's Daytona, and Kids See Ghosts, would you rather listen to Nausier over those three projects? I don't think so. And to me, this just felt like a really rushed, incomplete mess, and this wasn't like a really true, proper comeback for Nas at the time, which thankfully we were able to move past that point with the King's Disease trilogy and the Magic albums that came after this point forward. So I'm happy that we got a much better comeback compared to Nausier, because to me, this just felt unfinished. This felt like it was trying to like absolve many different subject matters and themes, but it didn't really portray it all too well. At the number 17 spot, I'm actually going to go with the second Magic album. Now, out of all the Magic albums that have come out in the wake of the Nas's King's Disease run and Magic run, I still think Magic 2 is probably the weakest of the bunch because not only is it the shortest album in the six album rollout that happened here, but you also have to understand that this felt like at times a bit underwhelming, similar to Nausier. And again, I still can't go over the 50 Cent collab song, which I was hoping was going to be fireworks at the end of the day, but it ended up being a huge blunder at the end. So, for those reasons and many other reasons alone, that's kind of similar to how I feel about Nausier. That's why Magic 2 is at the bottom. All right, but then at number 16, we're going to go with a project that I understand a lot of people hold near dear to their heart, and I did talk about it recently when talking about the Lost Tapes 1 and 2, but I'm going to go with the second Lost Tapes. This is at the number 16 spot because, again, at the end of the day, what can truly be said that I haven't said already in the initial video, I felt like this project was not only like not really living up to the first Lost Tapes, but simultaneously there's just some really weird production choices and song ideas that just didn't really mesh well at the time. And while this was supposed to be another attempt at making a Nas comeback after 2018's Nas Year, I just think that over time it's kind of been a little bit forgettable. And at the end of the day, why would you want to listen to this project when the first Lost Tapes has existed in the first place for a while now? But moving on, of course, at the number 15 spot, I'm going to go with the Untitled album from Nas from 2008. Again, this project may be a bit controversial to place here really low because like all the political themes and subject matter that was going on with this project at the time. But for me personally, I think Nas's Untitled album is like was stuck in the time frame that it was, and I felt like it hasn't aged all too well production wise, lyrical wise, and it's kind of stuck in that bubble of when it came out back in 2008. And I think I'll have to simply leave it at that because the same of what I would say would also apply to our number 14 spot with Hip Hop is Dead. Now, to be clear, Hip Hop is Dead was at one point at my top 5 best Nas projects of all time, but in the wake of King's Disease and the Magic albums that have come out since then, it definitely has shifted completely as a result. And just like it was when Nas was Untitled, I felt like the production, the lyricism, and the focus being that hip hop is dead at the time, during during the time period when hip hop was at a commercial uh, low at the time period when this came out, was cute, was sweet, and also was like kind of like foreshadowing what was to come. I suppose if hip hop were to go in this weird, watered down, commercialized direction that it was, and thankfully, hip hop is not dead. At the number 13 spot, I'm going to finally put in a project that, again, honestly, truthfully, for many hardcore Nas fans, should be ranked about the same rank as Nostradamus because it did also come out within that same year, and that is I Am. Now, look, I understand that I Am and Nostradamus, respectfully, has been cited as like the worst Nas projects to come out. I get it, but you have to understand. I think I Am was at the time a much more better, much more complete project, and this was to me like Nas trying something out different, something unique, while still trying to like appeal towards the mainstream masses, like he did back with It Was Written. But even though this album didn't really like do successfully like critically wise, there are still some really good highlights here. There are some really good and amazing features from likes of DMX, Scarface, Aaliyah in the mix. And yes, unfortunately, Puffy, the big Puff is mass producing this project at the time, and what we know of him now. This is still a really good, solid project nonetheless. And I get that there's hate towards this album to this day, but I don't know, man. Give it a shot. There's actually some really good lyrical highlights and gems that are worth checking out. And it may not be like everyone's favorite cup of tea, but this is like a pretty passable, solid project nonetheless. That's actually like really good. But anyway, moving on to the number 12 spot, I'm going to go ahead and put in. Actually, I'm going to do two rankings. For the number 12 and the number 11 spot, respectfully, you honestly can move these around. Hell, maybe even at the number 10 spot. But at number 12 for now, I'm going to put in the first Magic album. Number 11 is going to be Magic 2, or sorry, Magic 3 to be specific. And number 10 will be King's Disease. And look, call me a little maybe recency bias all you want with my pickings here, but look, Magic 3, and King's Disease to me are like the weaker bunch of that 6 album rollout that Nas was rolling in at the time. And honestly, you can change these three rankings however you want. They're pretty much within that same realm of like it's really good quality, it's really strong, but there's like a little bit of something missing that make it stand out to make it being special. And again, out of all the Magic projects and the King's Disease projects out there, I think we can agree King's Disease 2 and 3 is definitely the best that Nas has come out with in quite a long time. So, but that doesn't mean that Magic 1, 3, and the first King's Disease was bad by any means, right? Again, first Magic album has some really good bangers, has some really good highlights. The fact that we have ASAP Rocky and DJ Premier in here on the first Magic album is really saying something. Magic 3 is like the last of the 6 album trilogy, and to me, this was like a really nice, good send off between Nas and Hit Boy's chemistry nonetheless. And to me, this was like a really nice little finale that was able to truly highlight Nas's amazing comeback during this time. And then, of course, King's Disease that came out 2012, 2020 to be exact. This was the project that won him his first ever Best Rap Album Grammy, and which honestly is pretty long overdue. But on top of it, this has a ton of highlights, a ton of really great songs that are worth mentioning and checking out for anyone who loves King's Disease and the trilogies that came afterwards. So because of that, that's why I would rank these in the 10th, 11th, and 12th spot. But again, you can switch these around however you want. They're kind of basically sharing that same ranking respectfully, depending on how you feel when you listen to these projects separately. So here we are at the top 9 best Nas albums, in my opinion. At the number 9 spot, I'm going to go with a project that was at the time slated to be Nas's final project before we wouldn't be hearing from him till 2018, and that is 2012's Life is Good. Now, this project to me, I felt is like one of the very few early Nas projects that got me into his discography in the first place. This is an album that to me was like a final true goodbye at the time, and this has a lot of really good highlights. And the fact that this was paying homage to like Nas, what made him special, going through a lot of like what made the 1980s golden age of hip hop and boom bop era of hip hop special was really nice, a really good homage to what was to come, and of course during the time period in his life where he finalized his divorce with Khalees, I believe, at the time period. This album is really good. It's really emotional. And just ring off the track list here, there's a lot, and I mean a lot, of highlights, especially if you got the deluxe edition of the project with the song Nasty. But moving on from there, we have No Introduction, Locomotive, A Queen Story, Accident Murderers, Reach Out, Worlds and Addiction, Summer on Smash, You Will Understand. These songs here are really good, strong highlights to showcase like why Nas was at the point of where he was. He has truly and really evolved to the mature state that he is. But I understand that there are so many people that may not appreciate Life is Good, and that's understandable. For me, this is like a really emotional project nonetheless, but I think we can agree that Life is Good was kind of like the tip of the iceberg of what was to come when we get into like the 6 album rollout that will come afterwards. Next, though, at the number 8 spot, we're going to go with, I think, is Nas's longest project ever in his discography as he decided to drop a double album of material, and it's 2004's Streets Disciple. Now, like I said, I think if there's only one criticism I have about this project to this day is that it is a really long, lengthy, beefy project, and after all, considering that Streets Disciple is like a pretty long and lengthy project, this is one that if you love like true hardcore lyricism in the project itself, you're gonna get a lot of bang for your buck with this project. Again, there's a ton of highlights here from A Message to the Feds, Sincerely Be the People, Disciple, These Are Our Heroes, Rest of My Life, Suicide Bounce, Streets Disciple, The Tile Trap, Virgo featuring Ludacris, Remember the Times. Again, there's a lot of songs here, bear with me. But give Streets Disciple a shot. This has like a lot of Nas's hardest lyrical gems ever during the time period when he was still like running off the high off of Godson and Stillmatic. And the fact that he was able to pull it off with a dome album worth of material is saying something. I mean, not a lot of rappers can say that they can pull off a double album and live to tell the tale. Let's leave it at that. All right, but at the number 7 spot, we're going to go with the best of the best. From here on out, this is where things are going to get a little bit contentious with what we have here in our final 7. But number 7, I'm going to go with King's Disease 2. Again, King's Disease 2, this was the moment that for me, like Nas showcasing what he had to offer was like, boom, holy shit. And again, when King's Disease 2 came out, this came out unannounced. No one knew this was coming out. I didn't even know this was coming out. And this turned out to be one of the best rap albums to come out of 2021 that year. Absolutely incredible project with really great storytelling, really great production by Hit Boy, and amazing collaborations that we never thought in a million years would ever happen again. The fact that we have another collaboration with Lauryn Hill, yes, the Lauryn Hill, on the track Nobody, is still crazy to this day. And every rapper's dream with Eminem and Nas on a single track together is also freaking crazy. But it's not just those two artists. You have YG, Boogie with the Hoodie, Charlie Wilson, EPMD, Blast, um, everyone on here fucking brought their A game on, and it's crazy that King's Disease 2 came out the way it is. It still sounds really good to this day. From songs like The Pressure, Death Row East, 40 Side, again, EPMD2, Rare, YKTV, Store Run, Moments, Nobody, No Phony Love, Count Me In, Composure, Nas is Good. This is like a banger on top of banger on top of banger, and it's so good that it held up really well to this day, man. At the number six spot, I'm gonna go with a project that for many is considered to be like one of the better hip hop albums in Nas discography. This was slated to be at the time the successor to Illmatic, and it's gonna be It Was Written. This project, to me and many Nas hardcore fans, is considered to be basically a classic among classics at this point when it comes to the Nas discography. And yes, while there are criticisms to this day about how this was the first misstep in the Nas's late '90s era, where instead of going towards what he was known for off of Nas Illmatic, he went to a more commercialized route and went more for the Mafia rap and the gangster rap themes that were dominating in the charts at the time. I think you can't deny that Nas's It Was Written was still a nice, strong, quality project. I've even seen nowadays now in the Nas hip hop community where a lot of people have even put Nas It Was Written within their top five best Nas albums of all time. To me, this barely squeaks it out there. Again, there are a lot of really good, amazing highlights off this project that cannot be ignored at this point. From the most popular track on here being If I Rule the World, featuring Lauryn Hill, Street Dreams, I Gave You Power, The Message, Take It in Blood, Nas is Coming featuring Dr. Dre at the time, Affirmative Action, which was one of the main songs and one of the main inspirations to that Firm album that I alluded to earlier. The Setup, Black Girl Lost, Suspect, Shootouts. The album itself is like really nuts and butts good and like a huge push, a huge step in a different direction compared to what Nas was on his debut album. Of course, I agree, but for the time being, It Was Written was a really strong, nice, and cohesive project that, for many, is considered to be like one of the better hip hop albums in Nas' discography, and probably one of the greater hip hop albums that's been referenced and cited to this day, and would be the catalyst to what is to come when we get to the other projects, of course. So moving on, we're now at the top five. At the number five spot, this is where I'm finally going to put an end to the last King's Disease trilogy, and that's KD3. Now, look, I know there are going to be arguments on this from here on out where it's like, hey, why is KD3 ranked higher than It Was Written? Hey, this is my reasoning. One, I think KD3 is just a lot more strong, a lot more iconic. On top of it, KD3 to me just feels like Nas's Illmatic, but if Illmatic was aged 40 plus years into the future. Because King's Disease 3, unlike KD2, which I absolutely love, I absolutely respect to this day, KD3 is one of those rare Nas projects that has zero features. No, nothing. No ifs, ands, or buts. There are no one featured on this project. It's just Nas and Hit Boy managing production. And this project, 17 tracks, nuts to butts, is absolutely incredible, absolutely amazing. And again, you can pick your layer between King's Disease 2 and 3, but while some people prefer KD2 as the strongest in Nas' discography, there's just something about KD3 that just reminds me so much about Nas Illmatic and why I fell in love with Nas in the first place. From Gail Reporter, Legit, Thun, Michael and Quincy, 30, Hood to Hood, Recession Proof, Reminisce, the Serious Interlude, which ended up being like a really cool fucking song. I'm on Fire, WTF SMH, Once a Man Tries a Child, Get Lit, First Time, Beef, Don't Shoot, and Till My Last Breath, which is the bonus track. This project is like what would happen if KD2 just was focused mainly on just Nas and Nas only. And it just continues the trend of King's Disease and Nas reflecting on him, his maturity, his status in hip hop, and how much he has grown as an artist from his humble beginnings. And KD3 is just a project that is going to be hard to replicate for many years to come. And to me, I was even debating about to putting this in my top three, honestly. Right, and now I think it's time I kind of wrap this video up with the final four Nas rankings. So with these final four, I'm gonna pretty much just breeze through these in a breeze. So at number four, I'm gonna go ahead and put in Stillmatic. Stillmatic is a project that for many is considered to be like a top three Nas project for a myriad of reasons, right? But considering like what we have here in my top three, I think we can agree that to wrap up my ranking here, like Stillmatic is a really good comeback project that was able to help reestablish Nas in the forefront after his release of I Am and Nostradamus, respectfully. And Stillmatic was one of the many albums that popularized a song with the song Ether, and also is one of the main reasons why the word "stand" was popularized in the first place. But yeah, I also have tracks like "Got Yourself a Gun," "Smoking," "You're the Man," "Rewind," "One Mic," "Second Childhood," "Destroying Big Bill," "The Flyest," "Rule," "My Country," "What Goes Around," "Every Ghetto." Like this project has a lot of really strong highlights and really just showcasing Nas back on the grind, back on his bag. And to me, this felt like Nas going back to the roots of what made him special in the first place and not trying to go for like a mainstream appeal that he was trying to do off of his last two projects with I Am and Nostradamus. And was also obviously the main reason he won against his beef between him and Jay Z at the time when this was rolling out. But simultaneously, this actually would have been my top three best projects if it was for these three albums that's left in the cutting room table. So I this is what I'm gonna do here. At the number three spot, number two, and number one, it's gonna go like this. Number three is gonna be Godson. Number two, the first Lost Tapes. And number one, which is to no one's surprise, Illmatic. Now, to wrap up these final three projects, why I put them in the ranking it is, it's simple. Godson, this was Nas's most emotional project ever and deeper profound one too, as this was inspired by the unfortunate death of Nas's mother in the early 2002 and has talked about themes such as religion, violence, grief, and redemption, and emotional experiences. And this project has a lot of really great, amazing highlights, and has like a pretty hidden Eminem production feature for any of you who's interested in that little tidbit of lore. But again, Godson at the number three spot is really good, super strong, really profound. Even has like a really cool posthumous Tupac feature in here that was actually executed really well and not like disrespecting Tupac in any way, shape, or form. And again, to me, this felt like a bit of a balance and much more cohesive compared to where it was with Life is Good at the time. But Godson was just a much more strong and personal project for Nas, especially after when you consider that this came out after Stillmatic. And then, of course, at number two, the Lost Tapes. I talked about this project Ray in a separate video and how amazing, how influential, and how big of an impact this project meant to me. So I'm not going to regurgitate a lot of what I said in that video onto this. But again, the Lost Tapes 2, to me, to wrap it up, is the true successor to my number one spot, Illmatic. The Lost Tapes 2 was essentially everything that I love about Illmatic, but just a lot more refined, a lot more like simple, skeletal, and just plain and showcasing why Nas is one of my favorite artists out there. Again, similar to KD3 in its weird sort of way. But Nas's Illmatic at the number one spot should be to no one's surprise at this point, because again, this was the project that put Nas on the map. This is considered to be one of the greatest hip hop albums of all time, one of the most important and influential hip hop albums of all time, and there's just no rap album out there that can rival that of Illmatic, outside the fact of like maybe Wu Tang Clan, 36 Chambers, or other hip hop albums from back in the day. And again, every track off of Nas Mag is absolutely incredible. 10 out of 10, nuts to butts, like nothing wrong, nothing iffy to like pick apart here and there. Like this is like the perfect hip hop album that you would have to listen to just truly get into Nas. And considering that this project is over 30 years old to this day and it still sounds like it came out like freaking today, is really saying a lot. Like this album is still holding up super well, production wise, lyrical wise, and it's one of the reasons why Nas has always been in the conversation for who is the greatest hip hop artist of all time. And Illmatic is one of those reasons. And yeah, with that being said, this is my ranking of every Nas project from the 19th spot all the way to the first spot. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Later.